Hey, welcome. And today, as you can see, we're talking about The Shining again, and that one character in particular that we see towards the end of the film when Wendy is running through the hotel. And here you see him. Let's call him the head injury ghost. He's one of the more prominent and strange ghosts that Wendy encounters in The Shining. I actually did a whole video just on how many ghosts are in The Shining, if you'd like to check that out too. Now, if you actually go to the Shining fan wiki article on a character called Horace M. Derwent, there is actually a pic of the head injury ghost, as we're calling him, and he's named as a character called Horace M. Derwent, but I'm not so sure that's correct. Because if you look here, you can see the actual full cast list for The Shining. And if we look for the pic of the head injury ghost, it doesn't say Horace M. Derwent. He doesn't have a name at all. He's just called Injured Guest. Now, I think there's a specific reason for that, and we'll talk about who I actually think the head injury ghost is. But first, we have to ask the question, who is Horace M. Derwent anyway? Well, Horace M. Derwent is a character from the book The Shining, who was the owner of the Overlook from approximately the mid-1940s to the early 1950s. But please keep in mind, Stanley Kubrick's version doesn't always match the book exactly. Details can be different. Now, some people in the Shining fandom have speculated that the man in the tuxedo who is with the bear-suited man in that strange scene is actually Horace M. Derwent. But again, I don't think so. I'm not so sure. The clothes don't appear like the 1940s or 50s when Derwent would have been throwing his parties. It just looks like an earlier era. Also, here's a cast list that shows the bear-suited man, but our head injury ghost is only listed as injured guest. The details of this character are purposely left out of The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. This guy's details don't match the head injury ghost in my opinion. First off, Horace M. Derwent was supposed to have thrown a big party at the Overlook in 1945, I believe. And of course, Derwent is supposed to have owned the Overlook from the mid-1940s through the 1950s. But look at the clothes the head injury ghost is wearing. Does that look like the 1940s? Our ghost is supposed to have just walked out of this party, which I've already made a recent video about, citing that I think it's a New Year's Eve party, because everyone is dressed very fancy. But the clothes here aren't from the 1940s or the 1950s. These look like late 1920s clothes. The head injury ghost can't be Horace M. Derwent because he exists apparently decades earlier than Derwent did at the Overlook. So the clothes don't match. But what else happened in the late 1920s? The stock market crash, of course. Maybe our head injury ghost is attending one last big party before it all comes crashing down like a ton of bricks. What did he say to Wendy? Great party, isn't it? I guess it was a great party until it ended. Now, here we see the actor who plays the head injury ghost, and his name is Norman Gay. Rather than the Overlook's owner from the 1940s, Horace Derwent, I think our ghost with the head injury is really more related to that ending shot of Jack in the black and white photo, where he is basically surrounded by wealthy and possibly well-known people from the early 1920s. Our ghost is more of an archetype of that era. A wealthy and well-connected guy who drinks whiskey and wears tuxedos to parties where even the waiters are wearing tuxedos. That's a pretty fancy party. So, to sum up, the official cast list just calls this character injured guest, but I think we can conclude he is definitely a ghost from another era, like the guests at the party and the guests at the even earlier party in the black and white ending photo. He's definitely not Horace Derwent, the owner of the Overlook, in my opinion, nor is he related to the man in the scene with the bare-suited man either. That's the subject of another video. I think he is a character from another era, perhaps right before the stock market crash in 1929, partying while the world is ending, getting one more drink from Lloyd the bartender. He's a good time guy who won't even let a huge bloody wound on his head stop him from having a good time. Well, that's my new video on one of the more memorable ghosts from The Shining. Hope you liked it. Sorry if my voice is still a little scratchy, but it's January in New York here, so I apologize. I'm definitely working on a few more things, which I hope to have finished soon. As always, thank you for spending time with me and have a great day.
Great party, isn't it?